Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our panel on careers in cybersecurity. We're really happy to have all of you joining us this evening in Toronto, where I am. So we have recent graduates and international students from institutions all across Canada, internationally, from outside Canada who are joining us. So we want to welcome all of you. My name is Zora Lakhani, and I will be moderating our session this evening. So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over with you. And these are just, some of the administrative and logistical aspects of making sure everything goes smoothly this evening, fingers crossed. So the first thing is that we want to let you know that you have been muted. There's no need to use your video this evening. You should be able to hear us via your device or computer audio, and our session will be recorded today. We also invite you to please use the Q&A function I believe it's at the bottom of your screen, to ask questions to the speakers. We will be ensuring that you receive your Devant Insider newsletter as part of this session. We invite you to please check out our website. Devant website is www.devant.ca, and you can check out our future workshops, including many of the free ones we offer at devant.ca/all-events. So before without any further ado, we can get started. As I mentioned, I'm Zora, and I'm really excited to be moderating our session this evening. Before I introduce our expert panels, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and Devant. I work with Devant to assist international students to stay, work, and succeed in this country. Before joining Devant, I worked internationally in India, Kenya, Pakistan, and Tajikistan. For 5 years, I worked with students, particularly that were preparing to go abroad to study. And so I really understand how brave a lot of you are for coming to a new country, and can understand some of your concerns, the hopes that we come with, and a lot of the aspirations we have for our future. And of course, there's been a lot of challenges with the pandemic and the economy. And so we're really wanting to share that we're in this together. So that's a little bit about me. And I will tell you a little bit now about Devant. So Devant is part of Academic Group, and Academic Group has been around for over 20 years. They're the largest company providing research and consulting expertise to colleges and universities in Canada. They focus on student recruitment, student success, and career development. And Academica started Devant because they saw the challenges and the opportunities that international students and recent graduates have when they are looking to establish successful careers in Canada. And this word Devant, for any of you who speak French, this word Devant is a French word, which quite literally means to be in front of. So we believe that our services and support will bring you in front of the rest, of the folks out there who are in your journey to stay, work, and succeed in Canada. And Devant is an organization tailored specifically to cater to international students and newcomers with the expertise of over 60 years of combined experience working in higher education and career development. So Devant is entirely set up to provide assistance to international students and newcomers like you. So we are very excited to have you here with us today. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. We have Amyn Sarif and Rahim Addetia. So Amyn, welcome. Amyn is Amyn Sarif has been at Optiv for the last year as a senior security advisor for strategy and risk management. Amyn there is responsible to align corporate business strategy with their security strategy. He brings almost 25 years of experience from one of Canada's big 3 telecommunications companies. His last position there was a business information security officer for M&A, and all newly acquired health organizations, where he was focused on bringing up security standards and of these newly acquired organizations to align with the corporate security program. So he was able to really kind of bring that focus on security standards up. He was also responsible for security budgets and building security business cases, along with strategic security planning and road mapping. Wow, I mean, like the plethora of experience that you bring to us, you know, including from the space now at Optiv and at TELUS. We're really, really happy to have you with us today. I mean, you know, given this this depth of experience, what advice might you have on getting designations in the cybersecurity space in Canada, or even more specifically within the province of Ontario? And would you be able to kind of highlight for us which of these designations might be really key to employment opportunities that folks might be looking for now? And, you know, as you speak to that, perhaps also giving us advice generally on staying and working and succeeding in Canada for international students and newcomers. So, Amyn, thank you so much for being with us today, and happy to have you speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I greatly appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, and glad that everybody could make this talk. I think it's important because of the fact that cybersecurity is growing, and it is growing at a pace which is there are not enough cybersecurity personnel or employ. The jobs outnumber the amount of people that they are to actually take these jobs. And so, with that being said, cybersecurity has really taken off as a key area. We see cybersecurity in the news every single day. With everything, you'll see companies that get breached. You can't access certain websites. You can't. In every industry, cybersecurity plays a key part because every organization is at stake here. With respect to cybersecurity experience, because of the fact that there is not enough cybersecurity personnel and there's such a shortage, a lot of companies are hiring people and training them in the cybersecurity space. Now, with that being said, they're not just taking anybody. They are taking individuals that are within the organizations and trying to move them into the cybersecurity space to see those that are closely aligned to those areas where they can adapt to cybersecurity. But to become a cybersecurity professional, there are some key things that you should be looking at. In terms of certification, when you look at certification in cybersecurity, there's one certificate out there, which is the Certificate Information System Security Professional, the CISSP certificate. That certificate is global. That certificate is valid anywhere in the world. And if you have your CISSP, you are basically set to enter the cybersecurity world without having to actually go about. It's a lot easier for you to actually enter in because you've already got that designation in place. Now, that's an extremely difficult certification to get. In Europe, the CISSP is actually equivalent to that of a BCom, is what they've said. And you can look that up because I've actually looked that up when I had somebody from IC Squared tell me that, hey, they take this seriously in Europe. So when you look at cybersecurity around the world, huge shortage of people. There are several certificates out there. The top three would have to be the CISSP, which is the top one that's globally recognized. The second one is the Certificate of Information Security Manager, the CISM is what it's called. And the third one would have to be the Certificate Information Security Auditor, which is the CISA, CISA. There are several others that are offered by CompTIA, Ethical Hacking, S+, CCSP. these are just different areas of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity goes across several different areas. There is governance, risk, and compliance. It all depends on what you want to do in terms of cybersecurity. So the world is pretty big for cybersecurity. The certifications that are out there, like I said, the top three would be your CISSP, CISM, and CISA. With respect to coming into cybersecurity without the knowledge, without the certification, you'd want to be in an organization and you'd want to slowly move towards that. So you'd want to work in the policy department, you'd want to work in the governance department, in assisting with areas or fraud. All of these are related to cybersecurity. From those areas, you can actually move into cybersecurity by working with other teams or finding out who's in charge of the security team, the corporate security team, and then getting involved in projects or looking to cross train in those areas. So with respect to actually getting to cybersecurity, it's not that hard as long as you want to put your mind to it. And as long as you want to gear yourself to the areas of the company which is focused on cybersecurity. One of the biggest areas right now is third-party risk management. And it's more of an auditory work that you're doing in third-party risk management, whereby you are looking to see which companies have all of their security standards in place in order to protect these organizations. With respect to actually moving into a cybersecurity job for a newcomer in Canada, a lot of the companies are going to look for that Canadian experience. And so a lot of people get frustrated in saying, I don't have that Canadian experience. How do I get into cybersecurity? I've had a lot of students come up to me and say, how do I get in? How do I get in? And sometimes for newcomers or students, I will say, take an entry-level position. Get into the entry-level position, research the job market, see what's out there, see the hottest topic items. So right now, if you go anywhere and you start looking up third-party risk management, you will see a lot of jobs in cybersecurity in third-party risk management or information security. If you want to go down into the weeds and go into the different areas of security, like firewall provisioning, those are specialized different areas, or pen testing, those are specialized different areas. You will need certification for those areas. But in terms of getting into the security fields, do your research, see what you like, see what you don't like. Several universities and colleges have courses in cybersecurity now, which is hard to believe that go back about 5 years, 5 to 8 years, nobody had a cybersecurity course. Nobody had a specified cybersecurity course except for CTIA. That was one of the only ones that were out there. And so now all the universities and colleges have realized we need to start building cybersecurity programs. And so you're seeing cybersecurity programs being created by universities and colleges to try and meet the demand. They're saying that these demands will still not be met after 5 years. So the jobs are out there. It's just a matter of finding it. And how do you find that? You basically research the job market. You're going to have to network, build your professional network by LinkedIn, going to webinars, attending conferences, local meetups. You will get to meet people. You will get to meet CISOs. You'll get to meet people in security and express your knowledge. Constantly learn. Learning is so important for cybersecurity, to have an understanding of cybersecurity. And I can tell you one thing. I'm an economics major. I worked at TELUS for almost 25 years. 18 of those years were in engineering. And the last 8 were basically in cybersecurity. And so I've been in cybersecurity for the last 8 to 10 years. That's when I got in. And I'll be honest with you, if I got in a little sooner, I would have loved it. I would have loved it even more, because that was the only regret I have when people have asked me, what would you have done differently? And I've always said I would have gotten into cybersecurity a little bit sooner. And the only other thing I will say is make sure that you are strong in your communication, because English is the common language for people in Canada and North America. To be proficient in English, so that you can explain and you can articulate yourself while you're working in the cybersecurity market. Other than that, I think just job searches, see what people are looking for, look at what skills are being required, and then take it from there to try to adapt those skills or learn about those areas.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I mean, I've tried to fervently type into the chat some notes based on what you've said. I'm really excited about some of these aspects. If you can please also maybe share links to the three
Yep.
certificates you mentioned, the CISSP, the CISM, and the CISA. I wasn't able to capture the full names, but recognizing that there's probably links that our participants can check out and learn more about these three certificates would be important in understanding the certification process. But something that really stood out to me was the fact that the demand is so high and that there isn't enough supply, and how following certain pathways even at the entry level can get us into opportunities for that can lead to cybersecurity related positions. I see some questions coming into the Q&A. Thank you. I invite everyone to really take a moment to type in your questions for Amyn in the QA, and we'll be able to answer them in the Q&A session. Amyn, thank you so much for your time and sharing your thoughts with us. I'm sure there will be many questions that come up for you from folks on the call, and hoping that we can continue that conversation. Thank you, Amyn. Rahim, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Rahim Addetia is the Vice President Operations. I am really excited because both of you have such a huge depth of experience. Rahim has 25 years of experience in information technology and has been part of the DSM Apogee, is that how I would pronounce it? IT services team for 23 years. Upon graduation from the University of Toronto, he joined the team where he received his Bachelor of Applied Science and Engineering. Initially hired as a junior technician, so really speaking to what Amyn was talking about, like coming in at that entry level, he has worked through the ranks, taking on many different roles, such as handling pre-sale support and assessments, project management, operations, and customer escalations, managing both technical and non-technical issues. Rahim is engaged with the clients in a very intimate fashion by planning and executing business technology reviews, multi-year budgets, capital plans, and security and policy audits. Rahim also contributes to IT committee meetings and reviews. And Rahim, your current role, you're primarily focusing on helping organizations become more secure and be able to understand why security is important. Thank you, Rahim, for being here with us today. And, you know, as Amyn talked about, cybersecurity being this very hot and active field today, given the enormous demand out there. Perhaps can you provide some insight on the types of jobs a graduate of a cybersecurity program could apply for? And folks on the call, if you can put into the chat like a little bit about yourself, maybe sharing what you are doing in the cybersecurity space now, or perhaps if you've done a program, or how you want to take the next step in your career path in cybersecurity, so we can get a little bit of an understanding of who's on the call, your background, and I'm sure, Rahim, there's lots of students or graduates of cybersecurity programs that are looking for certain types of jobs in the near future. And so along with that, Rahim, while giving insight on the types of jobs graduates might be applying for, maybe also giving some thoughts on what kind of skills employers are looking for in candidates when they see these applications. And of course, generally, any advice you might have in the space for international students and folks who've newly arrived. Thanks, Rahim.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you to Devon for inviting me out to this event, and thank you to everyone who's been able to join and listen to me put you to sleep in most cases. But I'm going to approach this from a slightly different angle because the company I'm with does not provide direct cybersecurity solutions. We are what's known as a managed service provider. So we're there for the networking, endpoints, and essentially the business needs. What we do is we go out and we look for specialists at other organizations to fill the gaps we can't internally. That doesn't mean I don't have a team that's training for the CISSP. I do have a few staff we're working towards it. But to be agile enough to shift is very expensive right off the start. So smaller businesses will generally want to outsource. What that does is it opens up a few different possibilities. You will have companies that will specialize in running a security operations center. Being able to get into a SOC as an entry level is the first step in most cases. Learning to monitor, detect, and respond are three keys to cybersecurity. If you can monitor and detect and respond timely, the organization is safe. But if you don't catch it, every minute becomes very important. That's why that's the best place to start, to really understand what is out there and how it's going to impact the customers you're working with. The second piece is how do you proactively find a way to make sure you're protected? And in order to be proactive, this is where things like penetration testing and vulnerability management come in. Let's patch the holes as we hear about them from be it Microsoft or I think Probe just had a couple of major ones that came out recently. Let's make sure that not only are we finding the vulnerabilities in the environment, we're testing to make sure what the exposure is. This is where ethical hacking comes in. These are skills not everyone can do well. I can learn ethical hacking, YouTube, no problem. But that doesn't mean I do it well. So once you start understanding how to monitor, how to detect, and how to respond, you can build on all the other skills that come with it, including the proactive side of penetration testing and vulnerability management. Then you get guys like me, who, as much as I have a super technical background, I've chosen to step away from it. And I've got into dealing with people. And this is where things like governance and compliance come into play. The idea is you want to reduce the risks, the costs, and the duplicated efforts between different teams in order to protect the company you're working for or the company you're being outsourced to. So this could be something as simple as companies who want to get certified in SOC 2 or get their ISO 27000 series certifications to say they're following the best security standards out there, or NIST, which is the big one that the US government has. That's the governance and compliance piece. That's the important piece. If I talk to a law firm of mine who works with a bank, the bank is going to that law firm nowadays to tell them, here's a list of 50 things you need to reach. You must have multi-factor authentication. You must have end-user awareness training. You must have least privilege. You must have identity and access management. And the list goes on and on. That list comes from the NIST standards, from ISO, from SOC. They pull all these things together and they merge them together and go, well, this is what we feel the best practice is, so you're not going to risk our information. That's where it all begins. The biggest thing you can do, and this is a step a lot of people forget about, start with the basics. You don't have to go into a SOC directly. You can start on a help desk. Understand this is a computer, this is how it operates, this is how it connects to the network, and you follow it right through till the internet. That is your building blocks, whether it's cybersecurity, regular help desk, network engineering, everything technology. And those basics are what will allow you to then have that clear understanding to know what to look for. A very simple example, and this is something I use with my help desk team all the time. When you see a ticket come in that says I can't find my file. What does that mean to you? Most people say, well, they probably deleted it accidentally. We just have to restore it. Or the click and drag, we accidentally put it into another folder. What nobody thinks about is that missing file. Maybe that's a ransomware that's running rampant through your network, renaming files so that they're encrypted. So something that's common can have so many different impacts where cybersecurity can come into play. And again, minutes matter. So being aware of those little things, you get trained as a help desk. You won't get that training in security. Start with the basics. Learn everything you can about Microsoft services in the 365 platform. Microsoft provides everything from EDR, endpoint detector response, right through to email, depending on which package you have. They even provide end user awareness training if you get the right package. 90% of the business world relies on Microsoft. That's a great place to start. If you want to go to security for DevOps, look into Azure, look into AWS. Both of them provide some really good DevOps opportunities. I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. But regardless of which way you go, identity and access management comes into play, whether it's Azure Active Directory or the IAMS version of Azure or AWS. All of that wraps into the understanding. And I mean, I think you can appreciate this one is the least privileged permission model. That is the number one focus across all companies right now. Why does my HR person need access to my finance folder? They don't, so they shouldn't have it. You silo the departments, you secure the departments, and you lower your risk footprint. And that fundamental will teach you how to reduce that footprint, how to look for that footprint. Where are the permissions set? Are you using group policy? Are you using Intune? Or are you not using anything? This is why you go back to the basics. And lastly, I mean, you hit on this as well around communication. Don't forget the soft skills. The hello, how are you? Please and thank you. You need to develop your communication in a manner that you understand how to diffuse that high tense situation. Because I can tell you, when one of my clients who's not listened to me for 25 years decides to get ransomware, they don't care who they point the finger at. They just want it fixed. How do you diffuse those situations? And then how do you go back to that non-technical stakeholder and tell them, well, if you didn't have your password set to 123, you would have been fine. Or if you had multi-factor authentication, this wouldn't have happened. It's very important. Work on the basics, work on the communication, you pull them together. And that's the foundation you need to grow into the cybersecurity world. Dora?
You know, it's so funny because I am definitely not in these spaces. I am I'm an educationist, a development practitioner, but when I hear the two of you talk, it's crazy like how much cybersecurity and like speaking to Amyn, really it is a part of every organization. It's a part of all our lives every day. Like these examples, Rahim, you gave, I was like, actually, that has definitely happened to me. These are things that I deal with. These are aspects that the way you broke it down, it's so digestible, like really working on the basics and communication, and then you can see how you work your way into the cybersecurity space. It's just, it's beautiful how it works, right? Like when you can see the beauty of these aspects, it kind of also makes it doable and attainable. And I hope that folks on the call can, in the question and answer section, really put in these scenarios, the situation they're in, and get the kind of answers they're looking for. But I'm just going to take a second and send this chat, my notes from your conversation, Rahim. And if it's okay with everyone, I'd be happy to start the Q&A. And again, a reminder for folks to submit via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen some questions that you might have for Rahim and Amyn. And also this is a great time, and I know, Amyn, you mentioned networking. This is also a great time to kind of connect with other people who are also interested in cybersecurity in this space. So feel free to share your LinkedIn contacts in the chat, so that there's several people on this call. So already this is a great start to build your network on LinkedIn and have those conversations and connect with those people to further the dialogue. So I see a question that has come from Jagadish. The first question, so Jagadish is asking, for CISSP, the minimum requirement is we have to be in IT for 5 years. Is that correct? And really, or is it that anyone can do a CISSP without any prior experience? So I'll start with that question from Jagadish, and maybe invite Amyn to start, and then Rahim, if you have anything to add there.
So for CISSP, yes, the minimum requirement is 5 years. You can write the CISSP exam. You will get an associate CISSP, and you will build towards those 5 years of experience while you have your associate CISSP. The CISSP exam is not an easy exam. It is a very difficult exam. So if you manage to get it without having that experience, kudos to you. It is an excellent certification to have, but it is highly advisable to get it with that 5 years of experience, so you don't have to retake that exam again in order to get the CISSP, the full designation. But you will need 5 years of experience. Now, on his second question there is, I have cybersecurity postgraduate certificate. Is this enough to get into an entry-level position? It is. It should be enough to get into an entry-level position. The majority of the organizations will be looking for Canadian experience. So you may want to look at organizations where maybe you can get into an adjacent job that can possibly get you in there if you've had trouble trying to get in and you can't get in. Something along those lines to get in, take a lower level position and work your way up is my recommendation. Rahim, you may have additional information on that.
Yeah, it's always about starting at the beginner level. Even if I look at some of the security consultants I deal with, they will take on co-op students. They will take on entry-level roles for short periods of time to help people get to where they need to be. It's not that, home run job with the salary, the benefits and all that, but just is there to give you that experience. So you could say, hey, I've spent 3 months, 6 months, 9 months putting what I've learned into practice. And that's the key. What you learn and practice, and I think I just answered that for somebody else on this chat, are two different things. And until you actually learn to put your learning into practice, you don't actually see how it all interlocks. Right? Theory is great. Practice, nothing beats it.
The only thing that I want to add to that is that I've spoken to, and Rahim, you could probably attest to this, or just tell me if I'm wrong. A lot of the cybersecurity C-level that I've spoken to are looking for one main quality in people for cybersecurity, and that is the willingness to learn, the willingness to take it to the next level. Getting that certification is one thing, okay? There are people that can be very book smart, but there are others that want to take it to the next level. And a lot of cybersecurity people will look for that potential in that one person who wants more, who wants to take it to the next level, who has that drive in them. And they can see that within them. And certain C-level that I've spoken to said, I would rather take somebody that has that drive in them, because I can always teach them cybersecurity, as opposed to somebody who has all these certifications but is not willing to do anything further. Like, I don't know, Rahim, what are your thoughts on that one?
I completely agree. And I know one of the practices we have with the companies I work with We will hire people for their soft skills who have maybe a little bit of certification, a little bit of experience. You can teach technical. Can't teach the soft skills.
And
Absolutely.
that article that I just posted in to everyone there was an article that just came out a couple of weeks ago. The main point in that article was the soft skills. So if you actually look into that article, that's basically 3 million cybersecurity professionals are wanted. When you start reading that article, a key component in that is soft skills, which Rahim was just talking about.
Thanks, Amyn, for sharing this article, and also just reminding folks again of it. And something that I also found interesting is that this idea of coming in at an entry level but needing the Canadian experience. Again, lots of people have struggled with this, even to get entry level positions, to get those. And you mentioned co-op. Are there opportunities for volunteering in this space at all? Is that something that, like, how does one even start their entry level opportunity without that Canadian experience? And maybe I can add, is it better to focus on at least getting some sort of minimal cybersecurity program or certificate versus trying to get that entry level and then going for the certification when perhaps an employer says, okay, like, now you're ready, let's go down that pathway?
Right. So there's a few things in that question to separate out. Generally, you will not find volunteers in core IT functions because there's a lot of agreements that you have either within the organization or with other parties around confidentiality. And that makes it very difficult to bring in volunteers. We've partnered with Trios and I want to say Seneca to bring in 1 or 2 students per semester to give them a shot at making it into a career. And out of the 6 students we brought in the last 2 years, 2 of them are actually now on staff at the end of their graduation. There are so many more jobs out there than we have people in general. We just need to find those managers who think more like where I'm coming from, where the CISOs are coming from, that, I mean, give the example of that you want to find people who are hungry to learn and hungry to do well. Most of the time, what we find is what I call the entitlement generation. People who are, yeah, just give it to me, I exist, just pay me the money. And that's not what anyone wants. You have to have that drive. With regards to, does it make more sense to get the certification? If you can get it, kudos to you, go for it. CompTIA, they've got some great programs. But again, it's just knowledge. You can't progress only on knowledge. You have to have a solid foundation of practice to build that knowledge up from. You can do both at the same time, or you can choose to do one and then the other, but don't disregard, you need the basic foundation. I mean,
you know, Rahim, you hit the nail on the head there with respect to knowledge and understanding. You need to understand cybersecurity and the basics of cybersecurity. And Rahim, you alluded to this right at the beginning in your talk here. When you actually, very good point that you brought up with respect to a general course in cybersecurity, because when you look at cybersecurity, there are so many different areas of cybersecurity. Rahim mentioned the SOC, Rahim mentioned pen testing. There's other areas. There's payment card industry audits. There is different types of, I actually told my brother, who didn't realize this, but he works for Visa fraud. And I said, you're in cybersecurity because it is part of fraud. And I told him, I said, if you're interested, you're aligned with payment card industry, which is PCI, which is an auditory area of cybersecurity. And I said, it's a no-brainer because you're already in that field. Align yourself with what you know. So start with the basics. Start with the understanding of the overall cybersecurity picture. Do you like to do information? Do you like to do policy? Do you like to get in the weeds and do provisioning of firewalls? Or do you want to work in a SOC? It's what do you enjoy doing? Because if you love your job, you're gonna have that drive that's gonna take you to that next level. You're gonna have that hunger to want to learn more. Whereas if you're just doing it for the money, or you're just doing it to get into the field, and you don't like your job, employees will see that right through you. Now, in terms of getting that experience, this is where attending conferences, going to local meetups, if you just look up on the internet, hacking networks or hacking meetups or cybersecurity meetups, you will get a dozen coming up in your area. Start to meet people, start to talk to people, but have an idea as to what you want to do in cybersecurity. Do you want to talk risk? Do you want to talk pen testing? Do you want to talk SOC? Do you want to talk firewall provisioning? Find your focus area first, right? Because it's so vast, find what you want to specialize in. I've specialized in the risk space, and one of the key areas that I look at is third-party risk management. Okay, so I've learned everything about that. I can now hold a conversation in anything risk related and third-party related, because that's information protection. So there's the risk area, there's the data area. Do I want to do everything with data? There's a cloud. Everybody's moving towards the cloud. And you think about businesses, they used to keep all of their computer equipment, and I'm just simplifying this, on their premise. Now that's going away. Everybody uses the cloud. Everybody's connecting to Google. Everybody's connecting to Amazon, right? There is security for that. So find your focus area, concentrate on it, then start going over, then start networking, go to those local meetups, go to those webinars, go to those conferences, learn, adapt, continue to learn, and network with people in those fields, in those areas, and you will be sure to land up in that area as long as you're passionate and have a drive for that area.
Thank you, Amyn and Rahim. And in fact, Kelvin actually asked a question about folks who are looking to change their career to cybersecurity, and around like what kind of certifications they should go for without having any experience at all. I think you've already answered a lot of this question already in what you've both just talked about. And I think that's helpful to really recognize this aspect of understanding what you're looking for and doing that research and being able to get involved in the community through meetups, through LinkedIn, through networking. So thank you for responding to my question that also ended up being a response to Kelvin's. So thank you. So I'll ask a question from Itihas. This question is on a range of things. So as for cybersecurity in government, asking about roles such as NSA, cyber warfare, what does it take to get into these kinds of roles within the context of cybersecurity and government?
If you don't mind, I'll get started on that. First of all, you have to be a Canadian citizen. Government will not hire you without being a Canadian citizen. Now, once you become a Canadian citizen, what's going to be expected of you is to pass, if you want to work for the government and the NSA or CSIS, you will need to have security clearance. And there are different levels of security clearance in Canada to work for, depending on what you will have access to. There are different levels once you have your citizenship that you'd have to pass or have to be cleared for before you can get those jobs within the government and within NSA and CSIS. And this is primarily because of the sensitive nature of the information that you would have access to. You'd also be limited as to what information you have access to based on your clearance level, right? So step number one, you need to be a Canadian citizen. Step number two, you have to know everything about the role that you're looking for, because they look for experienced personnel. And then you have to make sure you are able to clear security status at the different levels within the government. We work with the government of Canada at Optiv, and when we send out when we reply to requests for proposals, RFPs, RFIs, they will request certain levels of security clearance for the people that they want to hire. Rahim, did you have anything else you wanted to?
Regardless of which route you want to take, ultimately, whether it's going into the government or going into the private sector, the one thing I have noticed from where I sit is a lot of the cybersecurity experts that get into government, their goal is to get out and go back into the private sector.
I laugh because I'm with the government.
Right. So I deal with companies, I'm not going to start name dropping them because that's not what the purpose is here, where the founders used to work for the NSA. They were on the red teams and blue teams. They decided, you know what, we're not able to do what we want to do, so they get out. So it's great looking at it from what will it take to get into the government, but just keep in mind, the fun stuff isn't there. The fun stuff is in the private sector.
Thanks, Rahim, for also that reality check in a way, right? Like, where is the fun? And so I have a question from Jagadish on interviews, which I find also very fun when we're having to go through that experience. What are some questions that can be expected in terms of perhaps maybe would an interviewee be asked to do a demo, like a CTF challenge?
I usually interview 3 to 5 people a month. And to this day, in probably about 10 years, I never asked them to do a demo. The goal is we will put you into a situation and see how you would respond to it, to test your understanding. But we don't want you to do work for us, right? So for cybersecurity, when I'm interviewing, let's say, a penetration tester, the very first question I'm going to ask is, do you understand the differences between risk, vulnerability, and threat? And that's your basics. If you cannot answer that question correctly when I ask you that question, the interview's done. Okay? That's what you have to be prepared for. And this is why I say you got to go back to the basics. If you don't understand those 3 key words, and no, I'm not going to give you the answer, right there, you're not ready for cybersecurity. I mean,
that's a great piece of advice.
Excellently said. And he's right. Depending on the role that you're going for, I've interviewed people for risk roles before, and what I like to see is, what do they know? What do they understand? Do they understand the job that they're going into for that particular job? You know, if you're a pen tester, you're coming in for a governance and risk job. Do you really want to be interviewed from my sit? Because I'm going to interview based on the governance and risk portion of the job. The questions will be along those lines. They're usually behavioral questions, and it's also to see, do you have a thirst for knowledge? Do you want to take it to the next level? So you're going to get a lot of behavioral questions here in Canada. I don't know if you guys have dealt with those, being newcomers. It's all to see how you answer situational questions. Because remember, when a incident happens or when something goes wrong, how are you going to handle that situation? Being in cybersecurity, you have to be able to react. And do you panic when you react, or do you logically try to react calmly and try to go through the steps as to what's required to actually resolve that? So you will be asked a lot of behavioral questions in terms of how do you do this, and you can go back to the STAR theory for responding to behavioral questions: situation, task, action, response, and results is generally the way you want to address those questions.
And Amyn, may I add to the STAR methodology of situation, task, action, and result? And if you think this is also valuable in the cybersecurity space, let's also talk about situation, task, assumptions. Like, what are some assumptions that you have to make in this situation when it's being presented to you? And so assumptions, action, results, and also reflection. Something that you were talking about is like, this thirst for knowledge, this thirst for learning, this thirst for really demonstrating that you've done your research and that you want to learn in this space. I think reflection is the key aspect to say, okay, and this is, especially if it's like, have you been in this situation before? Describe what you did, or describe something, or how would you deal with this situation? So that behavioral assessment that's being made, including reflection, is the key aspect. Because in reflection, what do you say? This is something that I learned. This is an oversight maybe that I had. I would do it differently in this way next time. So these are things I think that might be, especially those who are preparing for interviews in their journey, remembering the STAR method, but don't discount the value of talking about assumptions and talking about reflections. So if I could give my 2 cents
that is key, actually, because you think about cybersecurity, you want to review what happened so that you can fix it, or what went well, what didn't go well, and that allows them to say that, hey, they realized that they could have done this a different way and got a better result, or being more efficient. And that means that you have that capability of taking any situation and learning from it and applying those to the next situation. So,
and for those on the call, like, if you haven't been in an interview before, or if you have, you can still practice and prepare for these types of questions. So I think in pieces like Rahim, you were talking about the first question you're going to be asking. And if at that question, you already recognize that that person is not in the right space, and this is not the right conversation, you already know that interview is over. And so really considering the research, like starting from the, knowing the basics, but doing your research in this space, knowing where you want to be, what you want to do, and then practicing, like also practicing to prepare how to respond to questions like that. And I know, and especially for folks who may have not had experience in interviewing in this space of cybersecurity, or within the context of the Canadian, job market for cybersecurity and others, recognizing that you can practice these questions by creating your own question. Like, I don't know this space, but really, if just hearing from all of you, okay, like you gave the example, your client has come to you to say they have lost this file, and they need you to find it immediately. Describe to us what steps you will take to address the client's concern, and also ensure that there is follow-up on perhaps what might have happened. Because like you said, if you're not asking the right questions, you didn't recognize that there was a spyware that kind of might have done something. Okay, so these are things that you can kind of write out for yourself as questions, and then practice the STAR method and how to respond to them, while demonstrating your knowledge of the role and the space. So just wanted to encourage, I know not a lot of people have had the experience, but you can create your own experience by preparing these questions yourself, knowing the industry, and also perhaps things you might find online. So I know we're coming to an end, and we've actually been able to answer all the questions that were in the Q&A. Thank you everyone for being with us today. I just want to quickly do our closing remarks and really say a huge thanks to all of you for being here. I want to quickly see if I know at the end of the session you'll get an evaluation, so I invite you to fill that out. But in the coming weeks, we have upcoming events. So October events include the Devant Career Cafe, which is happening October 18th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and a live immigration Q&A on October 25th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can register for all of these events at devant.ca/all events. And I'm also keeping it in the chat here for all of your reference. Wanted to say a huge thank you to Rahim and Amyn for being with us and providing us with this insight on the space of cybersecurity. And I wanted to say a huge thank you to all the participants here today who have joined and who have invested time in yourself to be able to advance your understanding by connecting with us today, with Amyn and Rahim. I see that Amyn and Rahim did put their LinkedIn profile. Please do feel free to reach out. And when you do reach out to someone on LinkedIn, I would like to add as a tip, do add them on LinkedIn from a computer, because that allows you to add a note. And here I would invite you to maybe add a note to say, I was able to hear your presentation and ask questions to you in the Devant expert panel. And I'd love to kind of connect and maybe take, if you are ready and willing, maybe ask for 10 or 15 minutes, coffee chat, even virtual, to the folks that you meet. And so allowing yourself that opportunity to add a note when you add someone on LinkedIn from a computer really gives them that reminder of how they know you, where they might have met you, and how they can connect. So again, thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Amyn.
That's an excellent point, because I have 50 people sitting waiting for invites on my LinkedIn that I don't know who they are, and I don't know who's on this call. So unless you say the word Devant, I won't be adding you. So please make sure you put the word Devant in there, and I will then add you to my LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
And 9 times out of 10, it's somebody trying to sell us a service. It's nobody we know.
Exactly.
Especially in the cybersecurity space, it's so important to know who you're connecting with. So this is fantastic. Thank you, Amyn. Thank you, Rahim. Thank you, all of you, to being here. And please stay connected with us on Devant. If you have any questions or concerns, please do feel free to reach out to us at info@devant.ca, and we'd be happy to stay connected and continue the dialogue. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and evening, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.